Hey Wisecrack, Jared here. Today we're donning our trench coats as we talk about what went wrong with the final installment of the rather tragic Matrix trilogy, The Matrix Revolutions. We could talk about the flat characters, unclear motivations, and structural clusterfucks, but perhaps the most important thing to address is the fact that, well, the movie just doesn't make much sense. Or to put it more generously, it has some colossal narrative gaps. We basically can't make sense of the plot without some pretty massive interpretive leaps. Here are our top 3 burning questions. 1. How the hell does Neo have powers outside the Matrix? 2. Does Neo make his own choices, or is he just a pawn of larger forces? And 3. Is Neo supposed to be Jesus again? And how does this religious imagery fit into the story? Given how much thought went into these films, it can't be that the Wachowskis just dropped the narrative ball so royally, right? So if the answers don't lie in the narrative, perhaps they lie in the philosophies that inspired the films. Welcome to this Wisecrack edition on The Matrix Revolutions, What Went Wrong, and of course, spoilers ahead. In case you don't rewatch the trilogy every few weeks, here's a recap. In The Matrix, Neo wakes up from a simulated reality to discover machines control the world, and he is the One, prophesied to save humans from their metal foes. Digital ass-kicking ensues. In Reloaded, these dreams are dashed when we discover that Neo's not special. The prophecy was part of the machine's scheme all along, and the film ends with him gaining insane powers, but also in a coma. In Revolutions, Neo wakes from his coma and cooperates with the machines to beat Agent Smith in a fight to the death, saving humans, and maybe machines, from lives of servitude. So how does Neo have power in the real world? The only explanation in the film we're given is this.
Tell me how I separated my mind from my body without jacking in. Tell me how I stopped 4 sentinels by thinking it. Tell me just what the hell is happening to me.
The power of the One extends beyond this world. It reaches from here all the way back to where it came from.
Where?
The source. That's what you felt when you touched those sentinels.
And then in the Enter the Matrix video game, we get this.
He touched the source and separated his mind from his body.
But these are basically non-explanations since they don't, actually explain anything. There are also fan theories. Maybe there's a Matrix within a Matrix, or maybe Neo's wirelessly connected to the source. Dial-up is very 90s. But none of these are really textually supported. Instead, we think these mysterious powers have something to do with French philosopher Jean Baudrillard. In The Matrix, the Wachowskis reference Baudrillard several times.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
The Desert of the Real characterizes Baudrillard's critique of the postmodern era, where meaning and reality are replaced by shittier representations. For Baudrillard, the term simulacra describes signs that have no relation to the real, but pretend to, like a painting that looks like a Polaroid photo of a unicorn on Instagram. When these fake copies without originals get together, they form simulations, and when simulations hook up, they replace reality with the virtual, the web of media we're plugged into all day. What's worse, there's no easy exit from the virtual. You can't tell it isn't real, because who even remembers what reality is? When the virtual becomes more real than reality itself, we enter hyperreality, where technologies and simulations control meaning, not humans. Like a desert wasteland, reality is emptied of meaning for humans. The problem is, the Wachowskis took this a bit literally. They show technology that controls meaning by literally enslaving humans. Meanwhile, the real is a literal desert, or more like Mordor meets Manhattan. And The Matrix is not just simulated ideas and technologies, but a physical network into which humans are literally plugged. Even Baudrillard himself criticized the Wachowskis, saying they took the hypothesis of the virtual for an irrefutable fact and transformed it into a visible phantasm. But it is precisely that we can no longer employ categories of the real in order to discuss the characteristics of the virtual. That's French for they f***ed up. For Baudrillard, there are no red pills and blue pills or external reference points from which you can distinguish the real from the fake. If you could, one could easily choose the real, as Neo and others do. So, laying one final bit of smack, Baudrillard insisted, what would be interesting is to show what happens when these two worlds collide. It seems the Wachowskis not only took Baudrillard's words to heart, they plotted a pretty wild course correction in the sequels. They attempt to merge the real and the virtual by giving Neo powers in the quote, real world. We start the trilogy thinking of Neo as real and the Matrix and its programs as fake, but as the Matrix Revolution seems to imply, we're wrong. Neo doesn't just plug into the virtual, he can't unplug from it. The virtual is inside of him. When he kills the Sentinels or experiences the train station in a coma, we see a more complex idea of the virtual that is not the opposite of the real, but a layer of the real, or interwoven and confused with it that Neo can tap into. This may also explain how Smith entered the real world. When Smith clones himself onto Bane, the real becomes virtual, the virtual becomes real, and the distinction between mind and body collapses. This idea of the real world as virtual can also explain why Neo can see the world as energy pulses, as if it's virtual. Here the Wachowskis borrow from the old archetype of the blind seer, someone who, through seeing less, actually understands more. Odin even plucked out his own eye to gain knowledge. Although it's probably not what Baudrillard had in mind, Neo's blindness helps him literally see a fundamental truth about the relationship between the real and the virtual, namely that they aren't as separate as he thought. Finally, Baudrillard helps explain what's happening in that train station, the weird limbo space between the real and the virtual. Here, Neo discovers programs who want to escape the so-called real world, where they're forced to carry out their programming and attempt to hide in the Matrix. From the perspective of humans, the Matrix is a deceptive false space that steals their agency. But for the programs, the Matrix is a liberatory space where they can be their true selves. If you're a digital entity, maybe the virtual world is the real world. This is perhaps why, at the very end, the Oracle is ambiguous in her plea to the architect.
What about the others?
What others?
The ones that want out.
Obviously, they will be freed.
Is she referring to the humans or machines? Could be both, but for the machines, getting out might mean getting in, and for the humans, vice versa. This brings us to the conflict between choice and determinism, which, if you remember from our Matrix Reloaded video, they never shut up about.
Causality. Action, reaction. Cause and effect. Everything begins with choice. No, wrong.
Inevitable is literally the last word Neo ever speaks.
You're always right. It was inevitable.
Right after he says,
Because I choose to.
but wait, choose what? To keep fighting? Something else? Be clear, man. And whatever choice he refers to, is it even up to Neo? Or is he just the product of larger fates and factors? How does this fit in with the Oracle's apparent omniscience? Is it some mutation in his programming or purpose that drives Agent Smith to start a clone war? Is it chance? Or does he reveal that programs have the capacity for choice and free will? Let's see if we can use some philosophy of free will, determinism, and fatalism to make sense of this show. Most of us experience ourselves as making choices. We write geeky videos on Friday nights because, like Neo, we choose to, and not because we don't have friends. For Aristotle, this is because humans are rational animals. Our reason helps us to make choices and differentiates us from other animals and technology. To call something a choice, one must be able to act otherwise and not be driven by mere instinct or programming. And most of us probably agree with David Hume that the ability to act or not act according to our own desires and reason is the basis of human freedom. Neo, Morpheus, and the rest of the gang certainly agree, and they are cheesed off because humans are being treated, well, like machines, with their minds and bodies totally controlled. While plugged into the Matrix, they don't seem to have the capacity to act otherwise. And of course, the arc of the whole series bends toward gaining freedom. But, of course, it's not that simple. Neo and friends don't realize that freedom of choice is actually part of the Matrix itself. In perhaps the most cryptic conversation in cinema history, the architect reveals earlier versions of the Matrix didn't work because, even though the world was perfect for humans, they were being forced.
Choice. The problem is choice.
But choice is so essential, humans valued it even over perfect happiness.
Did you know that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world where none suffered, where everyone would be happy? It was a disaster. No one would accept the program, entire crops were lost.
The current matrix only works because it accounts for the human need to choose, albeit a paradoxical choice to give up their freedom.
As I was saying, she stumbled upon a solution whereby nearly 99% of all test subjects accepted the program as long as they were given a choice, even if they were only aware of the choice at a near unconscious level.
Hey, wait, doesn't this look similar to Baudrillard's claim that we prefer and willingly give up control of meaning to the virtual? Why, yes it does, Jared. Anyway, this produces anomalies in the heart of the system, Neo and his 5 predecessors. Human choice means there are some aspects of the architect's plan that can't be predicted. Enter Neo, who chooses to save Trinity instead of reloading the Matrix. Free will 1, determinism 0. But does Neo really make a choice? There are several reasons to wonder. First, it looks like Neo chooses to give the architect's plan a big middle finger and run off to save Trinity, but for Aristotle and Aquinas, the passions like love, anger, jealousy are the kryptonite of choice and free will. They're no more than animal impulses. The architect also isn't buying it. Maybe it's because he doesn't understand choice.
You and I may not be able to see beyond our own choices, but that man can't see past any choice.
Or it's because he thinks Neo's return to Trinity is just the result of another causal law: love.
Already I can see the chain reaction. The chemical precursors that signal the onset of an emotion, designed specifically to overwhelm logic and reason.
Or as a Wisecrack favorite puts it,
what people call love is just a chemical reaction that compels animals to breed.
It's possible that Neo's just responding to basic evolutionary programming, what the architect refers to as a chemical reaction. Colonel Sanders Incarnate believes that everything is mechanistic. The Matrix, fellow programs, and even humans don't have choice, but operate on physical, logical, and mathematical laws of causation. This version of determinism dates back to ancient philosophers like Democritus, Leucippus, and others you might confuse for diseases, who began noting the physical world was not random, but governed by strict causal laws. Determinists, buzzkills that they are, always claim the appearance of choice is just part of the system. Once the architect notices the human need to at least feel like they're making choices, even though they'd be plugged in like so many light brights no matter what, he just adds choice to his determinist calculations. Then the whole function of the One is to control the narrative of choice and resistance in a way that suits the machines. They're stuck in a cycle. Every time you think you're escaping the system, nope. Zion rises, the One appears, he meets the architect, the One chooses, most everyone dies, the Matrix reloads. Zion, the One, weird conversation, choice, death, reload. Rinse and repeat. Until Neo. But even if we buy that it's love with a capital L, not just chemicals that made him exit door number 2, or do whatever he's referring to here,
Because I choose to.
there are still reasons to be suspicious that it was a genuine choice. For medieval theologian and 40-year-old virgin Thomas Aquinas, choice is not enough. It's our free will that makes us sensitive to which goals are best or most moral, and allows us to be held responsible for our choices. Is Neo's will free? Well, one very powerful old lady and something called fatalism makes that unlikely.
And don't worry about the vase.
What vase?
That vase.
Fatalism is like determinism with a heaping spoonful of the supernatural. Less focused on physical laws, fatalists claim events are destined to occur because the gods, the fates, or even our own character and compulsions directly cause them to. And if by gods they mean a bearded math program, a cookie-baking prophet, and a self-replicating Lord Elrond, then we're inclined to agree. Over the course of the films, the Oracle's been very busy. She's the one behind the prophecy, and if we're to believe the prophecy is just a machination to met out the anomaly and guide him to the source, then that would mean she's tricking Neo and his pals into almost every one of their decisions, even when she pretends it's his choice. Through a fatalist lens, it almost seems like she and the architect are pulling all the strings, and the whole series is just a game of chess between the two of them.
You played a very dangerous game.
Then again, the Wachowskis leave us wondering, does the Oracle really make her own choices, or is she just a product of fate and determinism too? By Aristotle and Aquinas' definitions, it seems she does make choices.
I made a choice, and that choice cost me more than I wanted it to.
She makes the choice to save Sati and let Agent Smith turn her into a clone, but she also says she made these choices to fulfill her purpose.
What's your purpose?
To unbalance it.
She also says they had to happen.
I'm sorry this had to happen. I'm sorry I couldn't be sitting here like you remember me. But it wasn't meant to be.
So maybe she isn't making choices? So if Neo isn't making his own choices and the Oracle might not be either, then is anyone? This movie is freaking impossible. Maybe Agent Smith, as his name suggests, is the only real being with agency in the film. When he's killed by Neo, he refuses to return to the source to be destroyed.
I knew the rules, I understood what I was supposed to do, but I didn't.
It's a choice similar to the one Neo makes, right? No. By his own accounts, Smith is a die-hard fatalist, and he doesn't see this as a matter of will, but part of a grander plan.
We're not here because we're free. We're here because we're not free. There's no escaping reason, no denying purpose, because as we both know, without purpose, we would not exist.
And he's pretty sure his purpose is still to kill Neo. Ultimately, Agent Smith believes freedom, truth, peace, and love are just illusions and fantasies, as meaningless as the Matrix itself.
Is it freedom or truth? Perhaps peace? Could it be for love? Illusions, Mr. Anderson, vagaries of perception. Temporary constructs of a feeble human intellect trying desperately to justify an existence that is without meaning or purpose. And all of them as artificial as the Matrix itself.
Only programming and fate are real, and because they're not programmed, human lives are empty. But just when determinism and fate appear to have kicked the out of choice, we're reminded that will for freedom, peace, and love means something for both humans and programs.
I love my daughter very much.
I just have never.
Heard a program speak of love.
It is a human emotion.
No, it is a word. What matters is the connection the word implies.
Love is not just an illusion or some chemical BS. It's a powerful and meaningful connection. And so is freedom, or the freedom to do otherwise. Sati doesn't have a purpose.
I find it to be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But where we are from, that is not enough. Every program that is created must have a purpose. If it does not, it is deleted.
But her life is still worth living, and she should be free to live it. Neo realizes that just as humans can't exercise their free will, some programs can't either. Maybe this is what makes Neo realize that it isn't just humanity that needs saving from this war. If we really want to talk about choice, there must be choice for everyone. Then again, before we can put our neck braces away, we're in for more whiplash. Because it's the Oracle who sent Sati and her family here at this exact time for this revelation about freedom.
What choice?
To help you, to guide Neo.
Kinda makes it again seem like she's controlling everything. After all this and all the film's chit-chat about choice, it's not clear that Neo, or anyone else for that matter, actually makes one. If nobody is making choices, then is Neo even the real protagonist? Is it the Oracle? Are we even supposed to care? As if there aren't enough unexplained plot points, Revolutions ends with some confusing religious imagery. What exactly is this glowing, jacked-in Jesus supposed to show us? Maybe we can explain this in terms of choice versus fate, but also faith. From the beginning, Neo is a quasi-religious figure who helps save humans from their ignorance and enslavement in the Matrix. He's basically straight out of the Gnostic Gospels, which talk about a savior who is the ultimate guide to the nature of reality. This group of religious, mostly Christian heretics in the early CE claimed that humans perceive the material world in darkness, sleep, night, and blindness, and must be saved through waking, knowledge, light, etc. Sound familiar? Neo basically spends half the trilogy just waking up. When Neo sacrifices himself, he enables true knowledge of reality and peace between machines and humans. But it's not determinism that gets him this far. It's faith. He has faith in his purpose and in the possibility of peace, even when he doesn't have a f***ing clue what he's doing.
I know I'm supposed to go. But beyond that, I don't know.
Even the faith of the other characters play a big role in turning the tides of the war.
Yeah, I believe.
So while we can't explain how Neo raises the dead or how the blind can see, that kinda seems like part of the point. Maybe the religious imagery is the last word on the whole determinism business. Some things exist beyond reason, clarity, or calculations. Maybe part of what makes us human is this capacity for faith in peace, in goodness, and something beyond ourselves. So far, we've tried to fill some plot holes by exploring the Wachowskis' philosophy faves, but perhaps the answer to our question has been lying in a small detail all along. The Oracle's earrings. Maybe many of the inexplicable happenings and revolutions are there to prove some sort of yin and yang point, that it's not about winning, but balance. The philosophy of yin and yang found in Taoism and Confucianism is present in the films not only in jewelry, but in themes like balance, cycles, and dichotomies. According to Chinese philosopher Zhou Dunyi, yin represents a dark condensing force and is associated with metal, fire, and the material world. Yang is associated with light, expanding forces, water, earth, qi, or energy forces and life flows. Notice that in Revolutions, the real world is full of machines and bodies and is literally dark and on fire, while the virtual world is of the mind, where things are light and, well, not on fire. But yin and yang are not dichotomies. They stand for opposite but connected forces, like a light and dark side of the same hill. So why do Agent Smith and Neo both have unexplained powers and obsess over each other? Because they are yin and yang, light and dark sides of the same anomaly.
What is he?
He is you. Your opposite, your negative. The result of the equation trying to balance itself out.
Instead of confusing the real and the virtual a la Baudrillard, yin and yang help explain how the real and the virtual are two sides of the same coin, and both are important for achieving peace between machines and humans. Was Neo making his own choices, or was he determined by larger fates like the Architect and the Oracle, who are also a bit yin and yang-y? We'll never really know, but in Revolutions, choice and fate are a bit yin and yang, equally important aspects of the human experience. Is the Matrix really a religious allegory bringing credence to the prophecy, or did the Oracle make the whole thing up to win a game of wits against the Architect? Again, we'll never know, but maybe that's deliberate. Both fate and faith are important aspects of making meaning for programs and humans, and maybe we're being too meta here, but it seems Revolutions even combines Eastern and Western philosophy as two important parts of the philosophical story. So to summarize, what went wrong? Well, we've spent over 20 minutes philosophizing about these films and still have no idea what exactly happened. But maybe that's the point. The film seems committed to being beyond sense.
It doesn't make sense.
If they told us everything or flawlessly implemented each philosophy, wouldn't they just undermine their whole point? That some things are beyond reason and calculation, and that's okay? Or maybe we're giving the Wachowskis too much credit. Either way, despite their flaws, we won't be unplugging from these stories anytime soon. Thanks for watching, Wisecrack. We love making videos for y'all, and it's your support that keeps us going. So another way to support us is by becoming a patron. Patrons get immediate access to exclusive patron-only releases, including special podcasts, our new video on the movie It, and a sneak peek of our upcoming Wisecrack edition on the philosophy of Mr. Robot. And another new thing we're trying out is a podcast format called Wisecrack Edition Extra. You guys are always asking us about behind-the-scenes stuff, like what does the research process look like? What does the writing process look like? What does it take to make these videos? Well, now I'm holding hour-long conversations with the writers, researchers, and directors of these videos to help give you guys extra content if you want to think more about these properties. So if you guys are Matrix philosophy freaks, I just recorded an exclusive interview with the writer and researcher of this video you're watching right now. You'll get access to the podcast and everything else on our Patreon page. Plus, we're working on more exclusives each month. Once we reach our big milestone, we'll be able to branch out even further. Look, there are tons of movies and TV shows out there that we'd love to cover, but the reality of running a YouTube channel is that you have to focus on stuff that's super popular in order to keep the lights on. So by helping us reach our next milestone, we'll be able to make deeper track videos on topics you guys request all the time. Stuff like Whiplash, Drive, Twin Peaks, Fargo, and tons more. And as a patron, you'll get exclusive access to these videos months before anyone else. So click here or use the link in the description to visit our Patreon page and become a patron. And if you're hungry for more Matrix content before you go, check out our Matrix playlist here. Thanks again for the love, y'all. Peace.